Good morning. Welcome to Books at the Bottom of the Stairs. My name's Lorene. I've had an inflow of viewers from, I guess, a whole bunch of different spots, and thank you so much for joining me. I'm so thrilled about that. When I started this, I had a goal of only 25 people, and I would be thrilled with that, and I've reached over 400, and so, hip hip hooray! Or as Fred Flintstone would say, yabba dabba doo. So thank you all for joining me. I really appreciate it. And I had a huge number of hits on the last video, so just astonishing. Completely exceeds any kind of goals I had 2 years ago. So thank you for thrilling the pants off me. Today I have a single book that I'm going to talk to you about. And over the course of the last, I'd say about 10 days, I've looked at this book numerous times and tried to figure out how to approach how to do a good job of a single book for just one video, like nothing else. So I realized it's not really in my wheelhouse because I'm a bit of a chatterer, and to just concentrate on one book is, it becomes sort of an academic kind of thing as opposed to a more of a free-flowing thoughts off the top of my head kind of thing. So I'm going to pretend that there are two more books behind this and just go like I usually do. The book I'm talking about today is The Book of Form and Emptiness by Ruth Ozeki. Oh, there we go. Pull it back, then you can see the cover. Right, so I got this from the library as a large print, which makes it look deceptively big. However, it is probably in regular print, it's still quite a heck of a book. There's four main characters, really. We've got Benji O, who is the child, who is about 11 when we first meet him, and then his mom, Annabelle, Dad, Kenji, who we meet posthumously, and then the book itself. And the book itself is a bit of a confusing entity. The book is speaking to the reader. He's sort of the moderator between the different characters or the different events that are happening along the story. And sometimes the book is being a little bit sarcastic with the reader, as if to say, come on, you get this, you don't need to have this explained to you. And at other times it's a little more empathetic towards the characters that it's trying to help along in the telling of this tale. And Benji has witnessed the tail end of his dad's death by being hit by a car. So he didn't actually see the accident. He just kind of sees everybody gathering around. He's in the bedroom of his room, window of his bedroom, and he sees the stuff happening down in the alley. So he's not immediately there. There's the distance of space, and there's the distance of the wall. And it's hugely traumatic for him. Now, his mom happens to be there in the last moment. His mom is down with his dad in the alley at the last moments of Kenji's life. So equally traumatic for her. And of course, it's pretty traumatic for Genji, who does not come back as a ghost, but sort of haunts the family. The family centered around Kenji. He was definitely the focal point of the family. He was an alcoholic, but he was one of those, and a musician, not that they necessarily go together, but the two don't benefit each other, because he would be in a bar, and so the alcohol would be there, and everybody would be, the environment did not help the problem. And he was a wonderful musician, and he loved jazz, and he really brought the musical scene forward for both his wife and Benji. And so this is the connection. Also astronomy, looking up at the stars, was a connection between Kenji and Benji. So Dad has left behind a whole lot of beautiful threads that both Annabelle and Benji are trying to figure out how to navigate without him, because he was so not intense, that's the wrong word. He was so engaged with his passions that he brought people in with them. And so Benji and Annabelle were not necessarily as engaged as he was, but they don't want to lose it, because it's just another piece of Kenji that they also would have to let go of. So Mom works for a company that is a sort of an information gathering type of, so for instance, if the client was someone in the oil fields, they would hire this company to read through all the newspapers and watch the television news feeds and so on to figure out what happenings in the world, research or riots or whatever, might impact their particular interest group. So she would be the feeder of information to interest groups. And pardon me, part of the shtick there was that they had to hang on to the sources that the information came from for 3 months. And she's going through so many newspapers and radio stations and everything that what ends up happening is she becomes a hoarder by default because she can't let this stuff go. It has to stay in its place. And since she's working from home, there's just garbage bags. It's all perfectly cataloged and everything. It's like a librarian's dream of research, but it's all in green garbage bags. And so you can imagine the consequences of that. You've got rooms getting crowded and air circulation failing, and she's not living in the best of environments, so the mice and the rats are visiting. There's also the characters of the crows, who were Kenji's friends, and Annabelle has continued to feed the crows. The landlord's son has decided that the crows have to go. He's decided Annabelle has to go. Not interested in Benji at all. And he, in fact, decides his mom has to go. So she has a fall and ends up in rehab. And so he's moving in like a snake, trying to make everything go his way so that he can make some money off the situation. Those are the parameters of the story. The heart of the story is deep, deep love of Benji and Annabelle for each other, and for Kenji, and in fact for the crows as well. And the crows are quite affectionate to the family because they're being fed and cared for and so on. So it's about mental health, and the mental health deteriorates as time goes by. As the accruing of these plastic bags and stuff happens, Annabelle is becoming less and less powerful in her own home. She's becoming undermined by the mess. She's not able to even really provide breakfast and lunch, or even, especially dinner for herself and Benji. So her mental health is sort of diminishing as this pile of stuff is increasing. So we're seeing this kind of, for Annabelle, we're seeing this kind of scale happening, and she hasn't really got friends, and she hasn't really got a support network, and so we're starting to see the mess and the mental health looming over her. Benji, on the other hand, has a different kind of trajectory. He starts to hear voices, and he is hearing the voices of things. So he might hear the wood. He wouldn't necessarily hear the whole railing. He might hear the wood. And the wood is talking about what it was like to be a tree, and what it was like to be milled, and the great times it was to be a tree, and the terrible times it was to be milled. And they don't like the paint suffocating them. And so these are the kinds of voices that Benji is hearing, and they're everywhere. Pages of the book, the pieces of glass, the electrical sockets. So he's being inundated by these voices. And he's panicking. He's a grieving little boy who is panicking with these voices, acts out in school, and the ball starts rolling that is really negative for Benji. He's got professionals who want to help him, but really do not. They understand the sort of outwardness of children, but they don't understand the interior landscape of children. So how a child might, because there's a shortage of communication skills, how a child might convey grief. They don't have the language to explain it. They have got actions more than they have got words. So anyways, they start to medicate Benji. And as he's a little more honest with his therapist, the therapist decides not to believe him, because he's made friends with two homeless people in the library, where he snuck off from school, and he's in the library, and there he meets two people that are very safe to him, and a young girl and a man in a wheelchair. And the trouble with this the trouble with this analysis is I'm going to give away plot points that I don't want to give away. So let's just say that the two homeless individuals are more on his side of understanding and compassion. They've had mental health issues their whole homeless life and a little bit before, and they are also askew from the norms of society. So they see Benji as a kindred spirit, and they understand what he's gone through, the young girl in particular, because she's not that much older, maybe 8-9 years older than him, and has already been in a mental health facility a couple of times, and is dealing with her own addiction and her own med problems. So the three of them become a safe group for each other. The older man is definitely a caregiver to the young girl, and I don't mean that in a creepy way. He really protected her when she was on the streets, and not through the exchange of sexual favors, so that we can put that aside. So they are people that Benji is referring to because they're safe for him, and the therapists and the people around him, the teachers, don't believe. They think that they're other voices, and so eventually Annabelle and Benji are able to communicate to the point where she understands what his voices are doing to him and for him, and realizes more comprehensively what's real for him and what isn't for real, and she's able to finally support him. A lot of her trauma has been around, I've got this weird kid, I'm dealing with my husband's issues and this hoarding mess, I really don't need to be worrying about him. It's not like an abandonment, like get out of my life, I don't want to worry about you. It's more like, oh my God, it's just another thing. And so all these pieces are coming together. The author is a Zen Buddhist priest, and we see some of the healing methodologies that come out of meditation and Buddhist belief systems about how to let things go, how to ascertain what is real and what isn't real, and also to look at things from a slightly different lens, because there's the competition to appear correct in all strata, in all situations, is not a Buddhist kind of principle. You don't take a mask on and off for different situations. You are who you are throughout. You try and reach equilibrium and maintain your equilibrium by being authentic to yourself. And also, this author has got some definite opinions on the medical pharmaceutical situation and the medical professionals who are dealing with mental health, and it's how you take your academic and medical training and your pharmaceutical support system and address it to an actual human, because a human doesn't look anything like the pages of a book. So we've got the therapist who is beginning to understand how much she really doesn't understand. And then we've also got a critique going on about a capitalist society, in terms of it's always an exchange. It's always, you do this for me, I'm going to do that for you, or the other way around. There's always a payment system. You don't ever just give for the sake of giving and expect nothing back in return. You don't necessarily make a change to society in order that anybody benefits. It's always, I'm only going to make this change if it benefits me. Your needs and welfare is not my primary concern. So there's some very interesting underlying critiquing going on. So it makes it a very, very deep book. And now my book club was supposed to do this last month, but for, I think, mostly reasons of colds and fevers and so on, we didn't actually meet. And the people that are in that book club are very, very thoughtful, one of them in particular. And I would have loved to have known what their take on the book was. I'm sure it would have been like a really mind-blowing kind of conversation, because we all come from it from different points of view. But that didn't happen. I don't know when it's going to happen, so I decided to bring this book forward to you anyways, not wait for them. If they bring something forward, I can always do a recap. So I recommend this book. If you've got hoarding issues, if you feel like you're on the positive side of hoarding issues, like you're beginning to get a handle on this, It might not be a trigger warning, but it depends on how fragile you are there. If you've got a child with voices and that sort of pre-schizophrenia kind of manifestations, it could be triggering, but also Benji is just such a hero. He's so brave. His mom is so supportive. He's so intrepid, and he so wants to solve things. The book doesn't just automatically get rid of Benji's issues, but what they do is they normalize it within the family framework. So the family is able to deal with his issues. I don't really have the words for this. It's that they're normal for Benji. They might not be normal for Thomas down the road, but they're normal for Benji. And by taking the stress of him having to behave exactly like the norms, and they reduce that kind of stress levels, he's able to learn how to chill out with his issues. He's learning how to cope with the issues. Mom's learning how to cope with her own issues and how they interact. So there is the potential for some trigger warnings in here, but for me, it was such a heartwarming end of book. It wasn't just in the last final chapters. We started to see growth and compassion and love really from the onset. But so it's a beautifully paced book. It's got a lovely arc to it, and the ending isn't boring, because there's a lot of very interesting things that transpire as we come to the book's resolution. I gave this a 5-star. I think that my book club would be very supportive of this book. It's hard work in the sense of there's a lot of emotional issues that the characters are going through. But there's also a lot of hard work in just thinking a little bit outside of the box of what are our expectations about mental health and the pharmaceuticals and the doctors and so on. It challenges those suppositions and gives us a bit of a leg to stand on if we confront our own problems in the doctor's office, for instance. It's like, no, you need to believe me. It's your job to help me. It's not your job to be right. It's your job to help me navigate a solution. So I just think on many levels it's a beautifully written book, and I have heard that the other books that Ruth Ozeki has written are more personal, and just the way the world is going right now, my own little world, I am staying away from things that are super duper biographical. Right now I need to be in the world of fiction. So I think what I'll do is go on to Goodreads and see what her other books are like and see whether they appeal to me, because as a writer, she's wonderful. She oh my goodness, the things that she observes and writes, and she's got a huge amount of nature observations going on in this sort of slum area where the family lives. When Benji goes up into the mountains for a camping trip, that's kind of amusing. She's got a sense of the natural world around her, and she's got a sense of neighborhood. She's got beautiful writing that's going on here. There really isn't a sentence in here that I came across that needed editing. They're all just such crisp, glorious sentences. So, I think I recommend this quite highly, and I hope you enjoy it. And I guess that's it for me. I hope all your reading dreams and adventures continue to come true, and I will see you in Nonfiction November. Bye-bye for now.